The NHL is terrified. This is happening as the Winnipeg Jets go out adding key pieces at this year's trade deadline, including Luke Schenn and Brandon Tanev, filling two voids which they needed going into this postseason. We're going to break all this down and more later on this episode. Before we get into that, if you're enjoying this content, make sure to go down and hit that free subscribe button. We'll be keeping you up to date for the rest of the season. But with that, we got up straight into this series, where we did see yesterday the Winnipeg Jets went out to acquire Luke Schenn from the Pittsburgh Penguins for a second and a fourth round pick. They also go out to pick up Brandon Tanev from the Seattle Kraken for a second round pick. Now I'm just going to kind of throw it to you. What were your initial reactions for the Jets going out and getting two guys that can pound the crap out of the opponents?
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly why they went out and got some of these guys. Notoriously, Luke Schenn is one of the most physical defensemen in the league. And, you add a guy like that to a team as scary as the Winnipeg Jets are so far this season, a team that's won 10 games in a row multiple times this season, it's pretty scary. And then adding Brandon Tanev, there was rumors of them going out and getting a center. It didn't happen. Things were actually very quiet. I was wondering if Kevin Cheveldayoff was even going to make a move at some point, but obviously he pulls off these two moves. And, all season we were talking about, what do the Winnipeg Jets need? They need a center probably, and they need another defenseman. Well, they got the defenseman and they also got Brandon Tanev. And I don't hate it. I don't hate that they didn't go out and didn't get a center. I think that Nemestikov has been playing great. He earned that contract extension too. So they have faith in him. And honestly, this team has been playing great, but they needed a few more pieces. And I think adding a guy like Brandon Tanev, him moving over from Seattle to start playing some meaningful games with the Winnipeg Jets, he is full of life. We saw it last night. The Jets absolutely clowned the New Jersey Devils, which was a pretty interesting sight to see for sure. I know New Jersey's dealing with injuries and all that stuff. Nothing's really going right for that team, but still great to see for Winnipeg Jets fans. And again, I think the NHL is pretty terrified of this team. They're one of the best in the league. They have been all year. They're continuing to roll. They add a physical guy like Luke Schenn on the blue line too. This is going to be a tough team to beat in the playoffs.
And the biggest thing is, listen, like you said, this is a team that's the top of the National Hockey League. Yes, you could go out and get some big names. This was a seller's market, so you're paying a pretty penny for the name. But if the team's rolling with the group that you have right now, why switch things up when you can add two key pieces? And we're going to touch on a couple of the key pieces, but talking about missing on a couple of guys, we did see some quotes coming from Cheveldayoff. He said he tried to move on from the first round pick. He said, I tried the heck not to keep it, basically. In this quote, you can see he continues on when the reporter asked him about Brock Nelson, who they were linked to for weeks. He said, I'm not going to get into any specifics as far as what the different situations were. But again, we put a real strong foot forward, and that's where we're at. So it seems like it had nothing to do with the 6-team no trade clause. It just happened to be other teams are willing to give up top prospects, a first round pick, and even more. And maybe the Jets didn't feel comfortable moving on from that exact amount, especially with the team that is the top of the NHL. Why move out all these key pieces just to make the roster a bit better? And I'm not going to read this full quote, but you can see them just talking about getting Nelson for a cup chase. And it says, unfortunate, at the end of the day, our group, we really like it. It didn't happen, didn't materialize, but we like what we have. And that's the key word of this. Why change things up? They like what they have. Roll with it. It's the top team in the NHL for a reason, but kind of throwing this back. Listen, I know, Darius, with these two guys in Luke Schenn and Brandon Tanev, they're going to be guys that are going to lay quite a few hits. Looking at the hit charts for Luke Schenn, over 200 hits every single season. He had a season with 300 hits. I mean, looking at Brandon Tanev, he's no shy of putting up over 120 hits as well. With them coming in a physical Western Conference, do you think this could tip the tide for them in a 7-game series, especially when these guys get rolling in the playoffs?
It could, but I do think that a lot of this is still going to fall on the shoulders of the top players, the Kyle Connords of the world, the Mark Scheifele's, who's having a great season, by the way, and obviously Connor Hellebuck in the net. It's still going to fall on those key pieces and whether or not they get it done or not. But when you look at Luke Schenn, you mentioned the physicality, and we all know that, right? He's a physical player, and it's going to help you in the playoffs. He's going to throw some monstrous hits, as you're seeing on your screen right now. And even Brandon Tanev bringing the physicality. But Luke Schenn plays the game the right way too. He makes the simple plays. He doesn't overcomplicate the game like a lot of defensemen do, and especially a lot of young defensemen do in the league right now. He's just going to chip the puck out. He's going to do the little things. He's going to make those outlet passes. He's very underrated, a very underrated puck mover, I think, just getting the puck out of the zone. So it's going to help the Jets, especially in the bottom pairings, because I suspect that they're probably not going to change the pairings, at least the top four at this point. Maybe Colin Miller comes out for Luke Schenn. So I think it's really going to help that pairing as well and kind of, lengthen the lineup a little bit that much. So I'm most excited for Jets fans for Luke Schenn, to be honest. But when you're talking about Brandon Tanev too, he's bringing that physicality. He's a player who has a motor as well. He never stops, right? He's going to be playing probably on your third line, maybe even your fourth line right now. We don't know exactly what the lineup plans are heading into the playoffs, but anything can change. But they do have some built-in chemistry throughout the lineup, and I think something to keep in mind because you brought it up as well. I'm sure they were kicking tires on Brock Nelson, but at the end of the day, you keep majority of your top prospects. You upgraded the team where you needed to, and this team is playing very well this season. So why not go for it with the same type of group? At the end of the day, it's going to be the top guys who need to get it done in the playoffs anyway.
And I kind of want to go back to Luke Schenn for a minute. Listen, saying Luke Schenn should play top line minutes in 2025 does seem ridiculous, but looking at this group, we've seen Luke Schenn dominate when he's playing with puck-moving defensemen on the top line. It happened with Morgan Rielly in Toronto. We've seen it happen with Quinn Hughes when he was younger in Vancouver. He can move around this lineup and not only throw hits. As you said, he's an underrated puck mover. He's going to throw hits. He's a big body. He's hard to play against. But another big key aspect is the fact that, listen, the Winnipeg Jets are sitting in the middle, number 15, on the penalty kill percentage. Bringing in Tanev and Luke Schenn does fill out the penalty kill even better. We could see Tanev slide right into PK2, and I would not be shocked, Darius, if we do see Luke Schenn getting penalty kill time. Listen, I know there's a lot of names on this penalty kill that fans want to keep on, but with Tanev saying sliding straight into the penalty kill, could you see Luke Schenn maybe taking Stanley or Pionk's spot on the second unit?
Absolutely. And as you can see here, I mean, there's an open left wing position as well. So I wonder if that's for Brandon Tanev. I mean, we know he can kill penalties. So I wonder if they try that out. I don't think they have yet, or maybe they won't right away because he's got to get acclimated to the team and the systems and all of that. But Luke Schenn, to me, at least, again, Jets fans, let us know in the comments. I'm sure I'll see some of that in the comments. But Neil Pionk is more offensively minded. So maybe you take him out, put Luke Schenn there, who has a history of killing penalties, is physical, knows how to play on the penalty kill. You put him there instead. And then Neil Pionk has more time to play 5-on-5. He's more energized, so he's not wasting time on the PK. 5-on-5, power play if you need him there as well. So it's going to be second unit probably, but it's going to be interesting to see what they end up doing there. But I think they've added a couple options here that can kind of lengthen the lineup a lot, and I think that's going to be huge for the Jets going into some big games down the stretch and in the playoffs as well, because they want to win the Central Division too, right? Like you want to make sure you win this crazy Central Division that it's turned into with Dallas getting Mikko Rantanen as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do, but I think they have a ton of new options now that they kind of experiment with. And, if it does work out, it's going to move certain guys around so they have more time to play 5-on-5 and on the power play as well.
But Jets fans, what's your thoughts on this NHL trade deadline? Were you hoping for more, or do you think adding these two players in Luke Schenn and Brandon Tanev were exactly what this team needed? Go ahead and leave a comment down below on what your thoughts on this entire trade deadline. Give us a grading on it as well. Would you think it's an A? Would you give it a B? Or would you give it even an A+ at this point? Let us know down below. Way down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back with another episode, and you're not going to want to miss that. So with that, I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Darius, and take care.